The ruthless Mafia boss took his son to school and froze at the classroom door when he discovered that the new teacher was the childhood love he had searched for 15 years but never found. Vincent Moretti was 37 years old, had $500 million, commanded an empire that made enemies tremble at his name, and had absolutely no control over his own son. "Dad, your tie is crooked," Leo said from the back seat. Vincent glanced down at the mirror, checked the knot, the length, the alignment. Everything was perfect. "It is not," he replied. "It is," Leo insisted. "And there is a spider on your neck." Vincent slapped his own neck so hard that the armored Maybach swerved into the next lane. The 3 black SUVs following behind braked sharply. Leo burst out laughing. "You fell for it twice in 8 seconds, the boy announced proudly. "That is a new record. I am writing it down in my victory notebook." "You have a victory notebook?" Vincent asked. "I do," Leo confirmed. "It only has your name in it." The car glided along the coastal road of Santa Barbara at 7:35 in the morning. The Pacific Ocean sparkled on the left like scattered diamonds. The California sun painted everything golden. And Vincent Moretti, the man who had ordered executions without blinking, gripped the steering wheel as if his 9-year-old son might attack at any moment. "Leo, one day you are going to use that brain to take over the world," Vincent said. "I already started," Leo replied. "I keep your ego from exploding. That is a full-time job." Vincent opened his mouth to respond when his phone buzzed. Marco's name flashed on the screen. He answered on speaker. "Boss, the traitor from last night has been handled," Marco reported. "The body?" Vincent asked. "Disposed of," Marco confirmed. Vincent noticed Leo watching him through the rearview mirror. "We will discuss this later," Vincent said quietly. "Understood, boss," Marco replied before hanging up. Leo tilted his head thoughtfully. "Dad, when you say handled, you mean like handled, or just handled?" the boy asked innocently. "I mean, you should focus on your spelling test today," Vincent deflected. "Nice redirect." Leo grinned. "I learned from the best. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs a smile today. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Now let us see what happens when the most dangerous man on the West Coast walks into a 3rd-grade classroom and forgets how to breathe. The black Maybach slid into the parking lot of Santa Barbara Coastal Elementary School at 7:53 in the morning. Vincent chose the farthest space, the most hidden corner, where the shadow of the trees covered almost the entire body of the car. 3 black SUVs stopped 20 meters away, their engines still running, the bodyguards inside ready for any situation. This had been his habit for 10 years now. Never park near the main gate. Never let anyone see the license plate. Never create an opportunity for an enemy. "Dad, why do you always park in a dead corner like that?" Leo asked while looking out the window. "Because I like walking," Vincent answered. "You hate walking. You once made Marco drive you from the living room to the garage because you were too lazy to walk 20 steps. Vincent fell silent. This 9-year-old boy remembered everything. "All right, because of security," he admitted. "Are you afraid someone will shoot you?" Dad Leo asked directly. "I'm afraid someone will hurt you," Vincent said, while looking at his son through the rearview mirror. Leo was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled in a way Vincent couldn't understand. "You know, Dad, one day you will meet someone who makes you forget all your security rules," Leo said. "You will park right at the main gate just because you want to see that person 30 seconds sooner." "That can't happen," Vincent shook his head. "I have built my defenses for 20 years. No one can break them." Leo opened the door, slung his backpack over his shoulder, and turned back to look at his father with a gaze strangely older than his age. "Dad, even the strongest defense system in the world has a weakness." "What weakness is that?" Vincent asked. "The person you least expect," Leo answered. Then the boy grinned as if he had just told a joke. But Vincent knew his son never joked when he said things like that. "All right, I am going now. Wish you a day without killing anyone, Dad," Leo Vincent called after him. The boy turned back. "Try not to hack into the school computer system today." "I can't promise." Leo waved and ran toward the school gate. Vincent stayed in the car a few more minutes, watching his son's small figure fade into the colorful crowd of students. Only when Leo disappeared completely behind the gate did he start the engine and drive away. He didn't know that in less than 5 hours every defense system he had built over 20 years would collapse completely. The one who broke it wouldn't be an enemy. It would be a 3rd-grade teacher, with eyes he had been searching for over 15 years. The headquarters of Moretti Holdings were on the 12th floor of the tallest glass building in downtown Santa Barbara. From the outside, it looked like a legitimate real estate corporation, with revenues of hundreds of millions of dollars each year. From the inside of the conference room at that moment, it was a place where the 5 most dangerous men on the West Coast sat facing one another with eyes that could kill. Vincent sat at the head of the table, his back straight, his face cold as ice. To his right was Marco, his loyal right hand for 15 years. To his left were 3 bosses in charge of 3 different regions of California. "Revenue this month is down 12%, Vincent said slowly. "Can anyone explain that?" The room fell into a silence so thick it was suffocating. Ricardo, who ran the Southern Territory, swallowed. "Boss, there have been some problems with the transport routes." "What kind of problems?" Vincent asked without looking up. "The Reyes gang is causing trouble at the border. They want to raise their protection fees." Vincent tapped his finger on the oak tabletop. The sound was steady like a countdown clock. "Then why does the Reyes gang still exist?" he asked mildly. Ricardo went pale. "I will take care of it immediately, boss." "You have 7 days," Vincent said. "On the 8th day I will find someone to replace you. And you know how I replace people." No one in the room dared to breathe too loudly. Vincent opened his mouth to continue when the phone in his jacket pocket vibrated. He was going to ignore it. That phone was for work only, and no one was allowed to disturb him during a meeting. Then he saw the sender's name. Santa Barbara Coastal School. Vincent's heart skipped a beat. He opened the message. "Dear parent of Leo Moretti, we kindly invite you to meet the homeroom teacher in room number 7 at your earliest convenience. Respectfully." Vincent read the message 3 times. The first day of the new term. A summons. What had his son done in less than 5 hours? "The meeting is over," Vincent said as he stood up. The 3 bosses stared at one another in confusion. Marco frowned. "Boss, we still have 7 items on the agenda." "Postpone them," Vincent replied briefly while taking his car keys. "But the issue with the Reyes gang," Marco began. "Reyes can wait. My son can't." Vincent walked quickly to the door. Marco hurried after him, his worry impossible to hide. "Boss, is something serious wrong?" "I don't know," Vincent said as he pressed the elevator button. "But anything involving Leo is serious." Marco fell silent. He had followed Vincent long enough to know that his boss could order 10 people killed without changing expression. But at the sound of Leo's name, that steel man would leave everything behind. "Let me come with you," Marco offered. "No," Vincent shook his head. "You stay and deal with this mess. I will be back in an hour." But he wasn't back in an hour. He didn't even come back that entire day. Because what was waiting for him in room number 7 would change everything. Vincent parked in his usual spot at the far corner of the lot. 2 bodyguards from the SUV behind him stepped out at once, ready to follow. "Wait here," Vincent ordered without turning around. "Boss, let us come with you," one of them said. "This is an elementary school, not a Reyes gang hideout," Vincent replied coldly. "What good does it do if you stand here and make my son feel embarrassed?" The 2 bodyguards stepped back immediately. Vincent walked through the school gate alone, and in that moment he stepped into a completely different world. The school hallway was long and bright, with sunlight pouring through the windows. The faint smell of crayons and floor cleaner lingered in the air. The walls on both sides were covered with children's drawings of crooked houses, smiling suns, and stick-figure families standing together. Vincent Moretti, a man who had walked through corridors full of blood and gunfire, suddenly felt strangely out of place. A little girl about 6 ran past and accidentally bumped into his leg. "I'm sorry, sir." She looked up at him with wide, round eyes. Vincent didn't know how to react. In his world, people didn't apologize. They either lived or died. "It's all right," he said softly, his voice stiff as if he had never spoken to a child except Leo. The girl grinned and ran off. Vincent stood there a few more seconds watching her go. He suddenly realized how long it had been since he had set foot in a place this pure. 10 years. 15 years. Or since that summer when he had been a 22-year-old teaching children how to swim at a public pool. Vincent shook his head to chase the memory away. He didn't have time for nostalgia. Room 5. Room 6. Room 7. The door to room 7 was slightly open. Vincent took a deep breath. He had faced the most notorious drug lords in Mexico without fear. He had stared straight into the barrel of a gun without blinking. But now, standing in front of his son's classroom door, he suddenly felt his palms grow damp. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The door opened and the world stopped. The woman was standing beside the teacher's desk, brown hair tied in a loose ponytail, a simple white blouse, a blue skirt falling to her knees, a colorful folder held against her chest. She was rearranging a few books on the desk and hadn't noticed someone had entered. Vincent stood there. His feet felt nailed to the floor. His heart missed a beat and then began to pound wildly like a war drum, because he saw those eyes. Warm brown eyes like honey in the afternoon sunlight. The eyes he had been searching for over 15 years in every city he had ever set foot in. The eyes he had paid people to investigate but never managed to find. The eyes he had thought would exist only in dreams and memory. Olivia. The name exploded in his mind like fireworks in the night. Olivia Bennett. The 12-year-old girl who had been afraid of the water back then. The girl he had patiently taught to swim all summer long. The girl with whom he had shared hundreds of ice creams on the Santa Barbara pier. The girl he had left without a single goodbye because his family had to flee their enemies in the night. 15 years. 15 years he had wondered where she was. 15 years he had blamed himself for not saying farewell in time. 15 years he had kept in his wallet an old photo of the two of them on the pier. A photo worn thin because he had taken it out to look at it too many times. And now she was standing here, less than 5 meters from him, in his son's classroom, as his son's teacher. Olivia looked up. Those brown eyes met his gray ones. She froze. The folder in her hands tilted slightly. A sheet of paper slid to the floor, but neither of them noticed. "Vincent," she whispered. Her voice was like a breath. So light he wasn't sure whether he had truly heard it or whether it was only an illusion. She said his name. After 15 years, she still remembered his name. Vincent wanted to say something. He wanted to say he had searched for her everywhere. He wanted to say he was sorry for disappearing without explanation. He wanted to say there wasn't a single day he hadn't thought about her. But his mouth refused to move. His throat was dry and rigid like a desert. His mind, the thing that had helped him build an empire from nothing, suddenly went completely blank. Vincent Moretti, the man who made the entire West Coast underworld tremble, the man who had never shaken before anyone, was standing frozen like a statue in front of his son's third-grade teacher. And in that moment he was no longer a mafia boss with $500 million. He was only the 22-year-old boy from years ago, standing on the Santa Barbara pier, watching a brown-haired girl smile in the sunset, and knowing that he had found the only pure thing in his dark world. Vincent's right foot decided this was the perfect moment to forget how to walk. He stepped forward and immediately tripped over the leg of the first student desk. His body tipped forward, his hand flung out, trying to grab onto something. What he grabbed was a tiny third-grade desk. The desk couldn't withstand the weight of a mafia boss who stood 1.85 meters tall. It crashed down, and everything on it went with it. A pink pencil case with a sparkling unicorn fell to the floor. The lid popped open. Pencils, crayons, a heart-shaped eraser, and a small plastic unicorn scattered everywhere. Vincent tried to stand up. His knee hit a chair leg. He staggered backward. His back bumped into another chair. That chair fell, pulling the one beside it with it. A domino effect. 3 chairs lay sprawled across the floor. Vincent Moretti, a man who had built a colossal underworld empire from nothing, the man who made drug lords bow their heads, was standing in the middle of the wreckage of third-grade furniture with a plastic unicorn stuck to the sole of his shoe. Olivia lifted a hand to cover her mouth. She didn't know whether to worry or laugh. "Are you all right?" she asked, and stepped closer. Vincent looked up at her. The distance between them was now less than 1 meter. He could see the tiny brown flecks in her eyes. He could smell the faint jasmine scent from her hair, and he completely lost the ability to speak. "Vincent," she said his name again, her voice gentle as if soothing a frightened child. "Is it really you?" You, here, teacher, son, yes." 6 words. 6 scattered words that didn't form a meaningful sentence. Vincent Moretti, a man who had negotiated with international crime lords in 5 different languages, couldn't form a single proper sentence in front of an elementary school teacher. Olivia blinked. She seemed to be trying to process what he had just said. "You are Leo's parent," she said slowly. "Yes. 1 word. At least 1 word with meaning." Vincent congratulated himself silently. "And you are Vincent Moretti," she continued, "the one who disappeared 15 years ago without a single explanation." Her voice was still gentle, but Vincent heard something in it, an old wound that hadn't fully healed. He began, then stopped, then began again. "I looked for. Stop. I didn't want to. Stop. My family had to. Stop." He took a deep breath, trying to gather the fragments of his ability to speak, but his mind refused to cooperate. It was too busy processing the fact that Olivia was standing right in front of him, alive and real to the point he was afraid if he blinked she would vanish like all the dreams before. "You don't need to explain right now," Olivia said. She bent down and picked the plastic unicorn off the sole of his shoe. "We can talk later. Right now I need to discuss Leo." She placed the unicorn on the teacher's desk and looked back at him. "And perhaps you should sit down before you destroy any more classroom property." Vincent looked down at the wreckage of desks and chairs around him. His face burned. When was the last time he had blushed with embarrassment? He couldn't remember. Maybe never. Until today. Vincent sat down on the small chair meant for a third-grade student. His knees nearly reached his chest. A man 1.85 meters tall sitting on a chair 40 centimeters high. The image must have looked ridiculous. But Olivia didn't laugh. She pulled out the teacher's chair and sat across from him. "First, I want you to know that Leo hasn't done anything wrong," she began. Vincent let out a quiet breath of relief. At least his son hadn't caused trouble on the first day. "I sent the message inviting parents because I wanted to introduce myself to the families of exceptional students," Olivia continued. "And Leo is one of the most exceptional students I have ever met." "Exceptional in what way?" Vincent asked. He silently congratulated himself for forming a complete sentence. "Leo has an intelligence level far beyond his classmates," Olivia explained. "He answers every question correctly, without even needing to think. He reads books meant for middle school students. And he has an extraordinary ability to observe." Vincent nodded. He knew that. Leo had inherited his intelligence from him and his sensitivity from the boy's mother. "I want to discuss with you how to help Leo develop in the best possible way," Olivia said. "He needs to be challenged at the right level so he doesn't feel bored." "That's good, I agree, I'm very glad. Vincent stammered and stopped. He took a deep breath. "You teach very well." The sentence wasn't quite grammatical, but at least it had meaning. "Thank you," Olivia replied. Silence. The kind of silence so heavy it could be cut with a knife. Vincent looked at Olivia. Olivia looked down at her folder. Vincent wanted to ask her how she had lived these past 15 years. He wanted to ask why he hadn't been able to find her, even after hiring dozens of private investigators. He wanted to say he was sorry, that he had had no choice, that night his family had had to flee within 2 hours because his father's enemies had found their location. But he said nothing. He just sat there on the tiny chair, looking at the woman he had searched for 15 years, completely silent. "Would you like some water?" Olivia asked to break the silence. "Yes. No. Yes." Vincent wanted to punch himself in the face. Olivia stood up to get water, and in that exact moment Vincent saw a small shadow at the classroom door. "Leo!" The boy was standing behind the half-open door, his eyes fixed on the two adults, and in his hand was a small notebook, the victory notebook. He was writing something. His lips curved into a slight smile in the way Vincent knew meant his son was planning something. When Olivia returned with the glass of water, Leo was gone, but Vincent knew the boy had seen everything. He had seen his father, the cold and ruthless Mafia boss, curled up on a student's chair and stammering like a teenage boy talking to a girl for the first time. And that, Vincent understood, would never be forgotten. Leo would remember, Leo would analyze, and Leo would act. Vincent just didn't know that his 9-year-old son was preparing to change his life completely. That night, Vincent couldn't sleep. He lay on the bed in his 12-bedroom ocean-facing villa, but his mind was somewhere else. Somewhere 15 years earlier, the summer of 2008, Vincent Moretti, at 22, with no money, no clear future, working as a swimming tutor at the Santa Barbara public pool for $7 an hour. His father was on the run from creditors after a failed business deal. His family was living in a shabby rented apartment on the edge of the city. Vincent had to work 3 part-time jobs to help his mother cover living expenses. And then the girl appeared, Olivia Bennett, 12 years old, big, round brown eyes, brown hair tied into 2 pigtails, and a fear of water so intense she trembled the moment her feet touched the edge of the pool. Her parents had paid for 10 swimming lessons. On the first lesson, Olivia stood on the lowest step of the pool and cried. Vincent didn't know what to do. He was 22, had never had a younger sister, had never soothed a child, but something in the tear-filled eyes of the girl made him unable to give up. "What are you most afraid of about the water?" he asked gently. The girl looked at him. "I'm afraid of sinking, and no one's saving me." Vincent sat down on the step beside her. He put his own feet in the water and began to kick lightly. "You see," he said, "the water doesn't swallow me. It's just there, and I'll be here to make sure you don't sink." On the first day, they only sat on the steps and talked. On the second day, Olivia stepped into the water up to her knees. On the third day, she let the water reach her waist. On the fourth day, she floated with Vincent's support. And by the 10th day, the girl who had once been afraid of water could swim half the length of the pool. But what Vincent remembered most was not the swimming lessons. It was what happened afterward. Every day after the lesson, Olivia asked her parents to let her stay 1 more hour, and she spent that hour sitting with Vincent on the pier near the pool, eating ice cream and talking. Vincent told her about his dreams, about one day having enough money so his mother wouldn't have to work herself to exhaustion, about building an empire so no one would ever look down on his family again. Olivia listened with shining eyes. She told him about school, about her cat named Whiskers, about wanting to become a teacher when she grew up because she liked helping others learn new things. They were a strange pair, a hardened 22-year-old young man and an innocent 12-year-old girl. But they understood each other in a way Vincent had never understood anyone. Then one night at the end of August, Vincent's father came home with a face drained of color. "They've found us," he said. "We have to leave now." Within 2 hours, the Moretti family packed what they could carry and vanished into the night. Vincent didn't get to say goodbye to Olivia. He didn't even get to leave a note. He could only look through the car window as they drove past the pier, where the next day he and the girl were supposed to meet as usual. In the years that followed, Vincent rebuilt the empire from ashes alongside his father. His father taught him how to survive in the underworld. He learned how to become cold, ruthless, unforgiving. He became the Vincent Moretti the criminal world feared. But throughout those 15 years, he never stopped searching for the girl on the pier. He hired detectives. He combed through records. But Olivia Bennett seemed to evaporate from the earth. He didn't know she had changed her last name after her parents died. He didn't know she had gone through her own private hell. He only knew he had lost her. And now, 15 years later, he had found her again in his son's classroom. Vincent closed his eyes. The image of 27-year-old Olivia blended with the memory of 12-year-old Olivia. Both had those same warm brown eyes. Both made his heart forget how to beat normally. And both were the light he knew he didn't deserve to touch. That same night, in a small, shabby apartment 20 minutes' drive from Vincent's villa, Olivia Bennett also couldn't sleep. She sat on the faded old sofa, looking around the cramped room she had called home for 3 years. The walls were stained with damp patches. The rusty faucet dripped steadily in the kitchen. The ceiling fan creaked every time it turned. This was all an elementary school teacher, earning $38,000 a year, could afford to rent in Santa Barbara. Olivia hugged her knees and began talking to herself. It was a habit she had had since she was young, when she had no one to confide in. "All right, Olivia," she whispered. "Breathe. Calm down. It's just Vincent." Vincent Moretti, the boy who had disappeared 15 years ago, and now appeared as a wealthy tycoon with an armored Maybach and bodyguards. "It's nothing." She gave a bitter laugh. Who was she kidding? Her heart had been racing since the moment she saw him at the classroom door. After 15 years, she still remembered that face perfectly. Those cold, gray eyes. The poor young man who had taught her to swim had become someone completely different. She had heard rumors about Moretti Holdings, about its mysterious and ruthless owner, but she had never imagined it was her Vincent. Her Vincent. She laughed again. He wasn't hers. He had never been hers. He had only been the kind swimming tutor who had given her the most beautiful summer of her life. Then he vanished, as if he had never existed. Her phone vibrated. Olivia looked at the screen. St. John Hospital. Her heart tightened. She answered with trembling hands. "Is this Miss Bennett?" A female nurse's voice said. "This is St. John Hospital, calling about your brother Tommy Bennett's condition." "I'm listening," Olivia said softly. "The latest tests show that Tommy's heart condition is worsening faster than expected," the nurse said. "The doctor recommends the surgery be performed within 2 months. If not, it may be too late." Olivia felt the blood rush back to her heart. The cost, she asked, though she already knew the answer. $300,000 for the full surgery and post-operative care, the nurse replied. The hospital requires a deposit of $50,000 within 1 month to hold the surgery date. "I understand," Olivia said, her voice numb. "Thank you for informing me." She ended the call. Then she opened her banking app. Current balance, $2,317.42. Olivia stared at the number, then looked again, as if staring long enough would make a few extra zeros appear. $300,000. She needed $300,000 in 2 months. She earned $38,000 a year. She worked 2 additional jobs at night and on weekends. She had sold everything of value she owned. She had nothing left to sell. Tears began to fall. Olivia didn't try to stop them. She let them drop onto the cushion, soaking into the fabric. Tommy was only 17. Her brother was only 17. He hadn't been to prom yet, hadn't graduated high school, hadn't lived yet, and she was powerless, completely powerless. Her parents had died when she was 16. Her uncle had taken the entire inheritance. She had raised Tommy alone since she was 18 and he was 8. She had sacrificed everything for him, and now she couldn't save him. Olivia cried in that dark apartment until she had no tears left. She didn't know that 20 minutes away there was a man with $500 million lying awake thinking about her, and that he would soon learn everything. 3 days after the meeting in the classroom, Leo Moretti knew that something had changed. His father was no longer quite his father, not in a bad way, in a strange way. Vincent Moretti, the man as cold as ice, suddenly found himself sighing while staring out the window. Vincent Moretti, who was always perfectly focused in every meeting, suddenly grew distracted halfway through and asked again about things that had already been said. Vincent Moretti, who had never cared about his son's schooling beyond grades, suddenly asked about school so often it became suspicious. "How is school today?" Vincent asked at dinner on the 3rd night. Normal, Leo replied while watching his father. Did the teacher say anything? No. Vincent was silent for a moment. Then he asked again. Is she a good teacher? Yes. Is she kind? Dad, what are you doing? Leo put down his chopsticks. You've asked about my teacher 3 times in 5 minutes. I'm just interested in your education, Vincent replied and looked away. Leo said nothing more. But he stored everything in his memory. That night, when the entire villa had fallen asleep, Leo slipped into his father's office. He knew his father's computer password. Marco had accidentally revealed it 6 months earlier when Leo had pretended to be asleep on the office sofa. He typed in the password, and the screen lit up. Leo didn't search for anything related to his father's work. He knew his father did dangerous things. He didn't need the details. What he searched for was the personal search history. And he found it, a folder named Olivia. Inside were hundreds of files, private investigator reports, search records over many years, old scanned photographs, and one wrinkled photo of 2 people on a pier, a young man and a little girl. Leo recognized his father immediately, even though in the photo his father was only in his early 20s. And the girl, those eyes, that smile, it was his teacher. Leo read through the reports. His father had searched for her for 15 years. His father had hired detectives in 12 different cities. His father had never given up. And now she was here, right in front of him, as his teacher. Leo leaned back in the chair and thought. He had seen the way his father looked at the teacher in that classroom. He had seen his father trip and stammer. He had never seen his father like that in front of anyone. Dad loves her, Leo whispered to himself. Dad has loved her for 15 years. And Dad is an idiot who doesn't know how to move forward. The 9-year-old boy smiled. If Dad didn't know how, he would help. Leo took out his victory notebook and flipped to a new page. He wrote a big title at the top. The 12-stage plan. Objective. Make Dad stop being an idiot and get the teacher. Stage 1. Create natural opportunities for them to meet. Stage 2. Get Dad used to seeing her often. Stage 3. Gather information about what she likes. Stages 4 through 6. Break down Dad's cold walls. Stages 7 through 9. Make the teacher see that Dad isn't as scary as he looks. Stages 10 through 12. Push them to the point of no return. Leo looked at the plan and nodded with satisfaction. But he needed an ally. He picked up his phone and called Marco. 4 rings. Young Master Marco's sleepy voice answered. It's 2 a.m. Do you want Dad to have a girlfriend? Leo asked bluntly. Silence for 5 seconds. What are you talking about? Marco asked, far more awake. My teacher. Dad has been looking for her for 15 years. Now she's here. And Dad is acting like an idiot. I need your help. Silence for another 10 seconds. Then Marco laughed loudly. The sound echoed through the phone. Finally, someone understands the problem, Marco said. I've watched the boss sigh over that old photo for 15 years. I thought this day would never come. So you'll help? Leo asked. Young Master Marco replied. This is the most important mission of my life. I'm ready. Leo smiled in the dark. The 12-stage plan had officially begun. Stage 1 began on Monday of the following week. Leo deliberately left his math book at home. Dad, I forgot my book, he called Vincent at 9 a.m. I need it for the next class. Vincent was in the middle of a meeting with partners from Las Vegas. He looked at the men across from him, then at his phone. The meeting is paused for 15 minutes, he said, and stood up. 20 minutes later, Vincent appeared in the classroom with the math book. Olivia was teaching when he knocked on the door. She turned and their eyes met. Vincent forgot why he was there. He stood holding the book like a statue. Mr. Moretti, what do you need? Olivia asked. Book, Vincent said. Leo. Forgot. Give. 4 broken words. The most feared man on the West Coast was speaking like a child just learning to talk. Leo held back his laughter and ran up to take the book. Thank you, Dad, he said loudly, then whispered. Stage 1 complete. Stage 2 took place 3 days later. Leo pretended to have a stomachache and needed a parent to pick him up early. Vincent drove to the school at top speed. When he entered the nurse's office, Leo was sitting happily talking with Olivia, who happened to be there because of another student. You have a stomachache and you look that healthy? Vincent frowned. I feel better now, Leo replied innocently. Ms. Bennett took very good care of me. Olivia smiled awkwardly. Leo only complained once, and then started telling me about dinosaurs, she said. I don't think he really has a stomachache. Vincent looked at his son suspiciously. Leo looked back with complete innocence. Stages 3, 4, and 5 unfolded over the next 2 weeks. Leo forgot his jacket. Vincent had to bring it. Leo needed an urgent signature for a field trip. Vincent had to come sign it in person. Leo said Dad had promised to attend the parents' meeting. Vincent didn't remember promising, but he still came. Every time Vincent came to the school, he met Olivia. And every time he met Olivia, he turned into a disastrously awkward version of himself. He knocked over a potted plant in the hallway. He walked into the women's restroom by mistake and had to apologize to the janitor. He shook Olivia's hand for so long she had to gently pull hers back. The mothers in the parents' group chat began to notice. "Has anyone seen Leo Moretti's dad?" one mother texted. "He came to the school again today. He's very handsome," another replied. "But why does he keep staring at Ms. Bennett like he's hypnotized? I saw him trip in front of her last week." Trip. "He's over 1.80 meters tall and he tripped. I recorded a video," another said. The message came with a clip of Vincent bumping into the janitor's broom and almost falling over. "Ladies, there is drama," another jumped in. "I think he likes Ms. Bennett. Does anyone know who he is? I heard he's the CEO of Moretti Holdings." "A billionaire. Oh my God, a billionaire. Who's that clumsy in front of an elementary school teacher?" While the parents' chat was boiling with new drama, Vincent went home and ordered Marco to investigate Olivia. He needed to know how she had lived over the past 15 years. Why he hadn't been able to find her. Why she was here, working as an elementary school teacher on such a small salary. 3 days later, Marco brought him a 50-page report. Vincent read it in his office, and with every page, his heart felt more tightly squeezed. Olivia's parents had died in a car accident when she was 16. Her uncle, who had been appointed her guardian, had taken the entire inheritance. Olivia had been thrown out at 18 with her 8-year-old brother and not a single coin to her name. She changed her last name from Wellington to Bennett, her mother's maiden name, to escape the past. Fearing her uncle would find them, she took her brother and moved to a small town in Oregon, living in hiding for 14 years. She only returned to Santa Barbara 3 months ago because the specialist her brother needed was at St. John Hospital. She studied in college while working 3 jobs to support her brother. She graduated with a degree in education and massive student debt. Her brother, Tommy Bennett, 17, had a congenital heart condition. He needed surgery, $300,000. Olivia was desperately trying to raise the money. Vincent placed the report on the desk. His hands were shaking. While he had been building his vast kingdom of power, she had been fighting alone to survive. While he lived in a 12-bedroom villa, she lived in a shabby apartment with moldy walls and a leaking faucet. While he had teams of lawyers and investigators searching for her everywhere, she had been only 20 minutes away, struggling through life day by day. Vincent bowed his head, and for the first time in 15 years, the coldest Mafia boss on the West Coast felt tears burn at the corners of his eyes. In the 3rd week of the new term, Ms. Bennett announced a science project about observing family behavior. Each student would choose a family member to observe for 2 weeks, record any notable behaviors, and present the findings to the class. Leo immediately knew this was the perfect opportunity for the next stage of the plan. "I will observe Dad," he announced at dinner that night. Vincent was drinking water and almost choked. "Why me?" "Because you are the most interesting," Leo replied with an innocent smile. "Ms. Bennett said we should choose someone with the most observable behaviors. And lately you have had many observable behaviors." Vincent didn't know whether to worry or feel proud. He chose to worry. From that night on, Leo began recording everything. He carried his small notebook everywhere around the house and wrote constantly. Day 1, 7 in the morning. School mentioned. Dad's heart rate increases. Observation. Dad asks about Ms. Bennett 3 times at breakfast, even though I didn't mention her. Day 2. 10 at night. Dad sits in his office staring at an old photo. Don't know what photo, but Dad sighs 7 times in 15 minutes. Counted carefully. Day 3. 2 in the morning. Wake up to drink water and find Dad in the kitchen. Dad is watching YouTube videos about baking cookies. Vincent Moretti, Mafia boss, learning to bake at 2 in the morning. Leo had to bite his pillow to keep from laughing out loud. He sneaked into the hallway and recorded a video on his phone. Dad was reading the recipe with a serious expression like he was reading a $1 million contract. Flour all over the apron, a smear of chocolate on his nose, and the result after 2 hours was a tray of cookies burnt black as coal. Day 5, 6 in the morning. Walk past Dad's bedroom and hear mumbling. Dad is standing in front of the mirror practicing lines. Hello, Olivia, you look beautiful today. No, that sounds creepy. Hello, Olivia, nice weather today. No, that sounds like an old man. Hello, Olivia, I. Damn it, why can't I say a normal sentence? Leo recorded everything. He also drew a chart of Dad's estimated heart rate based on external signs. Every time someone mentioned Ms. Bennett, Vincent showed at least 3 of the following 5 signs. Swallowing, sweaty palms, looking away, clearing his throat, or changing the subject. Leo documented it all with the care of a scientist. Day 10. 7 in the evening. Dad asks what kind of cookies I like. I say chocolate chip. Dad goes into the kitchen again at midnight. This time the cookies are not burnt but hard as rocks. Dad still brings them to school the next morning as a thank you gift for Ms. Bennett for teaching me well. Marco reports that Ms. Bennett tried to take a bite and almost broke a tooth, but she still smiled and said thank you. Day 12. Dad starts reading a book about effective communication. Dad hides it under work files, but I saw it. The book is titled, How to Talk to Anyone. Dad marked the chapter about how to start a conversation with someone you like. Leo closed the notebook and looked up at the ceiling. The plan was progressing better than expected. Dad was already taking action, even if in the most awkward way possible. Now all that was needed was one final push, and the science project presentation would be that push. The day of the science project presentations arrived on the Friday at the end of the 4th week. Ms. Bennett announced that parents were invited to attend and see their children's work. Leo quietly sent his father a private message saying he very much wanted him to come. Vincent didn't suspect anything. He rearranged his meetings and arrived at the school at 2 in the afternoon. The 3rd grade classroom was packed with parents. The mothers from the group chat recognized Vincent immediately and began whispering, "There he is, there he is. The awkward billionaire has arrived. Sit near Ms. Bennett, sir." Vincent didn't hear them. He chose a seat in the back row, trying not to draw attention. Olivia stood at the front of the room, lovely in a light floral dress. She smiled at the parents and began the session. The first 5 students presented about their mothers, grandmothers, and sisters. Ordinary presentations with simple charts. Then it was Leo's turn. The boy stepped onto the platform with his laptop and a smile. Vincent suddenly found suspicious. "My project is titled, Observing Abnormal Behavior in My Father When He Is in Love," Leo announced. The room fell silent. Vincent felt the blood in his veins freeze. The subject of observation is Vincent Moretti, age 37, CEO of Moretti Holdings. Leo continued in a professional tone, as if presenting to a board of directors. Over the past 2 weeks, I have recorded the following notable behaviors. The first slide appeared, a bar chart titled Number of Times Dad Asks About Ms. Bennett Per Day. The chart showed the number increasing from 3 times on the first day to 12 times on day 14. The mothers began to giggle. Vincent wanted the ground to swallow him. Next slide, Leo clicked. An image of Vincent in the kitchen at 2 in the morning with a flour-covered apron and a tense expression appeared on the screen. Dad is learning to bake cookies to give to the teacher, Leo explained. This is attempt number 1. The cookies burned into charcoal. The next slide showed a tray of blackened cookies. This is attempt number 5. The cookies are hard as rocks. Ms. Bennett almost broke a tooth trying to bite one. The whole class burst into laughter. Olivia turned red to the tips of her ears. She looked at Vincent with a mixture of embarrassment and disbelief. Vincent didn't dare look back. He was seriously considering ordering Marco to kidnap his own son. But Leo wasn't done. The next slide was a video. A video of Vincent standing in front of the mirror at 6 in the morning practicing lines. "Hello, Olivia, you look beautiful today," Vincent's voice in the video said. "No, that sounds creepy." "Hello, Olivia, nice weather today." "No, that sounds like an old man." The laughter in the room exploded into uncontrollable waves. A father in the front row laughed until tears streamed down his face. The mothers held their stomachs. Even the janitor at the door had to cover her mouth. "Conclusion of the project," Leo said solemnly. "Based on the evidence collected, I confirm that my father is showing clear signs of being in love. The person is most likely my homeroom teacher. I propose the hypothesis that if Dad stops being an idiot and learns how to speak a complete sentence, the chance of success will increase significantly." The boy bowed. The class applauded thunderously, though no one quite knew whether they were applauding the science project or the greatest parental exposure scandal in the history of Santa Barbara Elementary School. Vincent sat frozen like stone. He didn't dare look at Olivia. He didn't dare look at anyone. He only wanted to disappear from the earth. The presentations ended. Parents began to leave. But the story had only just begun to spread. The parents' chat exploded immediately. "Ladies, did anyone record the boy's presentation video?" Yes, here it is. Send it. My husband laughed until his stomach hurt. Poor billionaire, but also kind of adorable. He learned to bake cookies at 2 in the morning just to give them to the teacher. Who wouldn't melt for that? The video was shared everywhere. The rumor spread across the school. By the afternoon, even the security guard knew that the head of Moretti Holdings was in love with a 3rd grade teacher. But what Vincent hadn't expected was that Olivia wasn't angry. She was only embarrassed, and she began to avoid him. Whenever Vincent came to the school, Olivia found excuses to go elsewhere. She didn't meet his eyes. She answered briefly and politely and then hurried away. And that, to Vincent, hurt more than any bullet that had ever passed through his body. 1 week after the disastrous presentation, Vincent still came to the school every day, even though Olivia kept avoiding him. He told himself he came for Leo. But both he and Leo knew it was a lie. On Thursday afternoon, Vincent arrived earlier than usual to pick up his son. He walked along the familiar hallway, his steps unconsciously turning toward room number 7. Then he heard crying. The sound came from a quiet corner of the hallway near the emergency staircase. Vincent stopped. He recognized that voice immediately. Olivia. Please, her voice was choked through the phone. I know the deposit deadline is next week, but I need more time. Just 2 more weeks. I am trying as hard as I can. Silence. The person on the other end was speaking. I understand the hospital's policy, Olivia continued, her voice trembling, but my brother is only 17. He cannot die. Please, I will do anything. I can sign a debt agreement. I can mortgage everything I have. Please give me more time. Vincent stood behind the corner, clenching his fists until his knuckles turned white. He heard Olivia thank the person and hang up. Then the sobbing broke free, no longer restrained. The sobbing of someone who had tried too long and had no strength left to continue. Vincent wanted to step out, wanted to hold her and tell her everything would be all right, but he knew his presence would only make her more ashamed. He stepped back silently and left. That night, Vincent sat alone in his office. The report about Olivia that Marco had prepared lay in front of him. $300,000 for Tommy Bennett's heart surgery. For Vincent, it was an amount he could earn in a week. For Olivia, it was an amount she could never earn in a lifetime. He picked up the phone and called Marco. What do you need, boss? Marco asked. St. John Hospital, Vincent said. Patient Tommy Bennett. Pay the full cost of the surgery and post-operative care. Understood, Marco replied without asking more. Who is the recipient? Anonymous, Vincent said. She must not know where the money comes from. Boss Marco hesitated. This is the first time I've seen you use money for something like this. Vincent was silent for a moment. $500 million, he said slowly. I have $500 million. I've used it to buy cars, buy houses, buy power, buy the fear of my enemies. But I have never used it to save the life of someone I care about. Marco said nothing. This is the first time, Vincent continued. The first time my money truly means something. Handle it tonight. I don't want her to cry another day. Understood, boss, Marco replied and hung up. Vincent set the phone down and looked out the window. The night sea was dark and endless. He didn't know whether Olivia would ever forgive him for disappearing 15 years ago. He didn't know whether she would ever accept him with all the darkness he carried. But at least he could do this. At least he could save her brother, even if she never knew it was him. The next morning, Olivia's phone rang at 7. She looked at the screen with eyes swollen from crying all night. St. John Hospital. She took a deep breath and answered, bracing herself for bad news. Hello, Ms. Bennett, a female nurse said. I'm calling with good news. The full cost of your brother's surgery and post-operative care has been paid in full. Olivia thought she had misheard. I'm sorry, she said. What did you just say? The $300,000 was transferred to the hospital account last night, the nurse repeated. Tommy Bennett's surgery has been scheduled for 2 weeks from now. Everything is ready. Olivia sank down onto the floor. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. Who? She asked, her voice barely a breath. Who paid it? The person requested anonymity, the nurse replied. I'm not allowed to disclose it. Please, Olivia pleaded. I need to know. That is $300,000. No one gives that kind of money without a reason. I'm truly sorry, the nurse said kindly. All I can tell you is that the transfer came from a company. Which company? Olivia asked urgently. The nurse hesitated. Moretti Holdings. Then she hung up. Olivia sat motionless on the cold floor. Moretti Holdings. Vincent's company. Vincent had done this. Vincent had saved Tommy. $300,000. He had spent $300,000 on her brother without saying a word. She didn't know what to feel. Grateful. Confused. Or angry that he had overheard her phone call in the hallway without her knowing. She needed to see him. She needed to ask why. Olivia took the afternoon off and took a taxi to the Moretti Holdings building downtown. She stood in front of the towering glass building and felt smaller than ever. She had no appointment. She didn't know if she would be allowed in. But she walked through the revolving doors anyway. The receptionist looked at her suspiciously. Do you have an appointment? I need to see Mr. Vincent Moretti, Olivia said. Mr. Moretti doesn't meet anyone without a prior appointment, the receptionist replied coolly. Please leave. Olivia was about to plead again when the elevator behind her opened. Vincent stepped out with Marco and 2 bodyguards. He was speaking on the phone with a tense expression and didn't see her. Take him down to the parking basement, he said into the phone. I'll be down in a moment. Then he and his entourage disappeared through the door leading to the basement. Olivia didn't know what compelled her. Perhaps instinct, perhaps curiosity. She slipped past the receptionist while she was answering another call and followed toward the basement door. The emergency stairwell led down 3 levels. Olivia descended step by step, the sound of her heels echoing in the empty space. On the 3rd basement level, she heard voices. She hid behind a concrete pillar and looked out. Her heart stopped. Vincent was standing there. But this was not the Vincent she knew. Not the awkward man who tripped in the classroom. Not the man who stammered and couldn't form a sentence. This was someone entirely different. His face was cold as ice. His gray eyes were no longer warm but sharp as blades. In front of him, a man was tied to a chair, his face bloody, shaking and begging. "Please, Mr. Moretti," the man cried. "I didn't mean it. I'll give it all back. Please spare me." Vincent said nothing. He only looked at the man with an expression Olivia had never seen in anyone. The expression of someone who had seen death too many times to fear it anymore. "You betrayed me," Vincent said, his voice low and cold enough to chill the air. "You took my money. You sold my information to my enemies. And you think I will forgive you because you beg." Marco stepped forward and placed a gun in Vincent's hand. Olivia covered her mouth to keep from screaming. "One last time," Vincent said. "Who bought the information from you?" The man gave a name. Vincent nodded and handed the gun back to Marco. "Clean it up," he ordered. Then he turned and walked away. Olivia didn't wait. She turned and ran. She ran up the stairs as if chased by ghosts. She slammed through the exit door and burst into the open air. She ran along the street without knowing where she was going. She only knew she had to get away. Away from that place. Away from what she had just seen. Away from the truth that the man who had saved her brother was also a man who could order a killing without trembling. Olivia made it back to her apartment and locked the door. She leaned against the wall and slid down to the floor. Her hands were still shaking. Her heart was still racing. Vincent Moretti was not just a billionaire. He was a mafia boss. He was a killer. And she was teaching the son of a mafia boss. She owed a mafia boss $300,000. She was developing feelings for a mafia boss. Olivia covered her face and cried. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know whether to run or to face it. She only knew that her life would never be the same again. 3 days after what happened in the basement, Olivia changed completely. She still came to class to teach, but her eyes were no longer warm. She still smiled at her students, but the smile no longer reached her eyes. And whenever Vincent appeared at the school, she didn't just avoid him. She disappeared entirely as if he were a ghost. Leo noticed everything. The 9-year-old boy, with an extraordinary ability to observe, understood that something had happened between his father and the teacher. Something bad. On Friday afternoon, when the dismissal bell rang and the students left one by one, Leo stayed behind. He sat quietly in his seat as the classroom slowly emptied. Olivia was stacking books on her desk and didn't realize he was still there. "Leo," she startled when she looked up. "Why haven't you gone home? Your father is waiting outside." "I know," Leo replied calmly, "but I need to talk to you first." Olivia felt her heart tighten. She didn't want to talk about Vincent. She didn't want to think about him. She only wanted to forget what she had seen in that basement. "You can talk to me on Monday," she said, trying to smile. "Now you should go to your father." "No," Leo shook his head. "It has to be now, because I know you are afraid of my father." Olivia froze. She didn't know what to say. A 9-year-old had just said out loud what she had been trying to hide. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said weakly. "You do," Leo replied. "And I do too. I'm not a normal child, Miss Bennett. I know what my father does. I know what kind of person he is in his world." Olivia looked at him with wide eyes. Leo stepped closer and sat down in the chair opposite the teacher's desk. "My mother died 4 years ago," he began. His voice was calm, but something trembled beneath it. "Her name was Sophia. She was beautiful. She used to sing to me before I slept. She cooked badly, but Dad always said it was delicious." Olivia sat in her chair, not taking her eyes off him. "Someone wanted to kill my father," Leo continued. "They put a bomb in his car, but that day my mother drove the car to pick me up instead of Dad. I was waiting at the school gate when the car exploded. I saw everything." Olivia covered her mouth. Tears began to fall even though she didn't want them to. "Dad changed after that day," Leo said. "He became colder, more ruthless. He built a wall around his heart and let no one in. He said if he didn't love anyone, then no one would be hurt because of him again." The boy was silent for a moment. "For 4 years I watched my father live like a walking corpse. He worked, he took care of me, but he wasn't really alive anymore. He smiled at me, but the smile never reached his eyes. Just like you are smiling now." Olivia couldn't speak. She only sat there and let the tears fall. "Then you appeared," Leo said, "and everything changed. For the first time in 4 years, I saw my father truly smile. For the first time in 4 years, I saw him clumsy and foolish like a normal person. He learned to bake at 2 in the morning. He practiced talking in front of the mirror. He did things I thought he had forgotten how to do. The boy looked straight into Olivia's eyes. I know my father is dangerous. I know he has done terrible things. But I also know he is the man who cried every night after my mother died, even though he thought I couldn't hear. He is the man who refused to take long business trips because he didn't want to be away from me for more than 2 days. He is the man who has kept an old photo of you in his wallet for 15 years and looked at it whenever he thought no one was watching. Olivia sobbed aloud. She couldn't hold it back anymore. My father is not a good man by the world's definition, Leo said. But he is the best man I know. And he loves you. He has loved you since you were the little girl afraid of the water on the pier. He has never stopped looking for you. Never stopped thinking about you. And when he found you, he tore down every wall and every defense he had built over 4 years. The boy stood up. I'm not asking you to forgive my father. I'm not asking you to love him. I'm only asking you one thing, what Olivia asked through her sobs. Don't be afraid of him, Leo said. He is frightening to his enemies, but to the people he loves, he would die to protect them. He couldn't protect my mother, but I believe he will never let that happen again, to anyone. The boy walked to the door and then stopped. Oh, I forgot to say he turned back. The $300,000 for your brother. My father didn't do that, so you would owe him. He did it because he couldn't stand seeing you cry. He told Marco that. I heard it. Then Leo disappeared through the door, leaving Olivia alone in the empty classroom, crying as she had never cried before. 2 days after her conversation with Leo, Olivia still didn't know what to do. She went to school and taught as usual, but her mind was elsewhere, thinking about what the boy had told her, about the mother who died in the explosion, about the father who built walls around his heart, about the old photograph kept in a wallet for 15 years. On Monday afternoon, Vincent had an emergency meeting with partners from New York and couldn't pick Leo up. He called Olivia and asked her to watch Leo for another 30 minutes until Marco arrived. Olivia agreed, even though she still wasn't ready to face Vincent. She took Leo out to wait in the schoolyard, where the Santa Barbara afternoon sky looked like a painting and the sea breeze carried the smell of salt. Leo said that he thought she should give his father a chance. But before Olivia could answer, 2 muffled gunshots hissed through the air. The 2 undercover bodyguards watching from the parked car across the street slumped over, unconscious before they could even reach for their radios. A black van screeched to a stop in front of them. The doors flew open. 4 men in black jumped out. Everything happened in less than 10 seconds. Olivia screamed and pulled Leo into her arms, trying to run, but a rough hand grabbed her hair and yanked her back. Leo kicked and struggled, but a 9-year-old couldn't fight 4 grown men. They were shoved into the van. The door slammed shut, and the vehicle sped away while the school guard could do nothing but call the police. 20 minutes later, Vincent's phone vibrated in the middle of his meeting. He opened a video message from an unknown number. He felt his blood freeze as he saw Leo and Olivia tied to chairs in a dark room. Olivia's face was bruised, and Leo was biting his lip to keep from crying. A voice off camera said that Vincent Moretti had 24 hours to withdraw from all West Coast territory, or his son and the pretty teacher would come back in body bags. The Reyes gang sent its regards and the video ended, and Vincent sat still for 3 seconds and then stood up and told everyone to get out. With a voice so cold the New York partners didn't dare ask anything and fled the room. And when the door closed, Vincent destroyed everything within reach, overturning the table, smashing the television, throwing a chair into the glass wall until it cracked and roaring like a wounded animal. And Marco ran in and froze at the wreckage, and Vincent ordered him to mobilize everyone and every gun and every car, and to find where the Reyes were holding his son within 1 hour, and that he would deal with them personally. And 45 minutes later, his intelligence team located an abandoned warehouse in the suburbs, 50 minutes from Santa Barbara, with about 20 armed guards. And they thought 24 hours was enough for Vincent to consider, but they didn't know that for Vincent Moretti 24 seconds was enough to decide to kill them all. And 12 black SUVs tore through the night with Vincent in the first car holding a gun he hadn't used in 2 years, because he had tried to leave violence behind for Leo and tried to become more legitimate. But tonight, the Mafia boss returned and hell followed. And when the warehouse came into view at 10, he jumped out before anyone was in position and ran for the front door, while Marco shouted for him to stop. And gunfire erupted, and Vincent stormed inside like a hurricane and shot down the guards before they could react, as his men flooded in behind him. Bullets flying and blood spilling and screams echoing, and Vincent didn't hide or retreat, but advanced, step by step, dropping every enemy in his way. And he heard Leo's voice from the corner, and saw Leo and Olivia tied to a steel pillar, with a Reyes man holding a knife to Olivia's throat as a shield and shouting for Vincent to stop, or he would cut her. And Vincent stopped and looked at Olivia, who was trembling but not crying, and looking back at him with unreadable eyes. And he told the man to release them, and he would let him live. And the man laughed and said, "Vincent never spared enemies." And Vincent only looked into his eyes and told him he had 3 seconds to choose life or death. And on 3, Vincent raised his gun and fired through the man's shoulder, making him drop the knife. But another shot rang out from behind, and Vincent felt fire in his left shoulder and staggered, but didn't fall, and turned and shot the last man aiming at him, and then collapsed. And Leo screamed, and Olivia cried his name, as Marco cut them free and called for an ambulance. And Olivia knelt beside Vincent on the cold concrete, with blood flowing from his shoulder, and he still smiled and asked if she was all right. And she cried that he had been shot and still asked about her, and that he was crazy. And Vincent said maybe, and that he had been crazy since the summer of 2008. Blood was still flowing from Vincent's shoulder, but he didn't let go of Olivia's hand. He held her trembling fingers tightly, as if they were the only thing keeping him in this world. Around them, there were still scattered gunshots as Marco's men cleared out the remaining Reyes, the air thick with the smell of gunpowder and blood. But Vincent saw nothing except the brown eyes looking at him. "I am a monster," he said, his voice faint but every word clear. "You saw it. In the basement that day. I know you were there. I know you ran." Olivia sobbed. She hadn't known he had seen her. She thought she had escaped unnoticed. "I don't blame you," Vincent went on. "I have killed people. I will kill again. That is who I am. That is the world I live in. And you shouldn't be involved with someone like me." "Then why?" Olivia asked through her tears. "Why did you risk your life to save me? Why did you pay for my brother? Why did you do all of this?" Vincent smiled, pale from blood loss but holding everything he had hidden for 15 years. "Because I love you," he said. "I have never forgotten you since the summer of 2008. Back then, you were the innocent angel I simply wanted to protect, the little sister I never had, the only light in my life that I dared not touch. But now, you are the woman I cannot live without." Since the 12-year-old girl who was so afraid of the water she trembled but still stepped into the pool. Since the girl who laughed while eating ice cream and got chocolate all over her face. Since the girl who sat beside me on the pier and said she wanted to become a teacher to help others. Olivia covered her mouth to keep from crying out loud, but tears poured down her face. "I have searched for you for 15 years, Vincent continued. "I hired detectives in 12 cities. I went through the records of thousands of people with the last name Bennett. I thought you had vanished forever. And then you appeared. In my son's classroom, less than 5 meters from me, as beautiful and warm as I remembered." He paused to breathe, each breath painful from the wound. But he kept speaking. "I know I don't deserve you. I know my world is too dark for someone like you. I know you deserve a normal life with a normal man. But I can't stop loving you. No matter how hard I try, I can't." The sound of the ambulance approached in the distance. Marco was shouting orders to someone. Leo knelt beside his father with his face wet with tears. "I love you, Olivia," Vincent said again. "Whether you accept me or not, that doesn't change. Whether you want me to disappear from your life, I will still love you. That is the one thing I can't control." Then he lost consciousness. Olivia screamed his name, but Vincent didn't answer. The medics rushed in and lifted him onto a stretcher. Leo held onto his father's hand and wouldn't let go. Olivia ran after the ambulance with shaking legs and a heart that felt torn apart. 3 days later, Vincent woke up in the most expensive private hospital room in Santa Barbara. His shoulder was carefully bandaged. The heart monitor beeped steadily, and 2 people were there beside him. Leo was curled up asleep on the sofa in the corner, his face still marked by dried tears. Olivia sat in the chair by the bed, her head resting on the mattress, her hand holding his even in sleep. Vincent looked at her and felt his heart ache in a way that had nothing to do with the wound in his shoulder. She was here. She had been here for 3 days. Even knowing he was a monster, even knowing he was a killer, she was still here. Olivia opened her eyes as if she felt his gaze. She looked up and saw Vincent awake. "You're awake!" she cried and hurried to call the nurse. 2 hours later, the doctor finished his checks and confirmed Vincent was out of danger. Leo woke up and hugged his father despite being scolded for almost touching the wound. Marco appeared and reported that the Reyes gang had been completely wiped out, and there was no one left who could threaten the Moretti family. He then hesitated for a second before adding with a cold smirk, "Also, boss, we paid a visit to Miss Bennett's uncle in Oregon." After a very persuasive conversation, he suddenly remembered he was holding on to her parents' inheritance. He transferred the full amount, plus 15 years of interest, to Miss Bennett's account this morning. He won't be a problem anymore. He also added that his legal team had already handled the local police and authorities, ensuring that the warehouse incident was officially recorded as a gang-on-gang dispute with no mention of Vincent's involvement. When everyone left and the room was quiet with only the two of them, Olivia finally spoke. "I've thought a lot," she said. "For 3 days while you were lying here, I've asked myself thousands of questions." Vincent waited in silence. "I don't know if I can live in your world," Olivia continued. "I don't know if I can accept what you've done. I don't know if we have a future. I need time." Vincent looked at her without blame. He had prepared himself for something much worse. "I understand," he said gently. "However much time you need, I will wait." "A month or a year?" Olivia asked. "Or 10 years. As long as it takes," Vincent replied. "I waited for you for 15 years already. Waiting longer makes no difference. As long as in the end you are there, I will wait." Olivia looked at him. The man in front of her had killed, had ordered executions, had built an empire with blood and violence. But he was also the man who had saved her brother, who had bled to protect her, who had loved her for 15 years without knowing where she was. She didn't answer. She only sat down in the chair and took his hand. And for Vincent, that was enough. 1 month passed since the night at the warehouse. Vincent's shoulder had healed. The Reyes gang had become history, and Olivia still hadn't given an answer. She no longer avoided Vincent. She greeted him when he came to pick up Leo. She replied to his messages, even if only briefly. She even accepted the flowers he sent to the school every week. But she still hadn't said yes, and she also hadn't said no. So Leo decided it was time for the final stage of the plan. The school's annual reading day would take place on the last Friday of the month. All parents and students would gather in the library. Ms. Bennett would be the host, and it would be the perfect stage for the public confession his father needed. "Dad, I need you to come to reading day," Leo said at Wednesday dinner. Vincent looked at his son suspiciously and said, "The last time you asked me to come, I was publicly exposed in front of all the parents. This time is different," Leo promised. "This time you will be the one in control. You need to bring flowers." "What flowers?" Vincent asked. "White lilies," Leo said. "Ms. Bennett likes white lilies." "How do you know?" Vincent frowned. "I asked her," Leo replied simply. "I asked what flowers she liked, and she said white lilies because they look like the ones her mother used to grow." Vincent looked at his son and sighed because the boy had planned everything from the forgotten books and jackets to the humiliating presentation. And now this. "What do I have to do?" Vincent asked. "Just bring the flowers and follow my signal." Leo smiled. "The rest is on me." Friday morning, the Santa Barbara Elementary Library was beautifully decorated, with colorful posters on the shelves, soft cushions on the floor, and a small stage in the center with a microphone and a reading chair. Parents and children sat in a semicircle waiting. Vincent hid behind the encyclopedia shelf in the corner, holding a bouquet of 12 white lilies and trembling. The iron-willed godfather who had faced gun barrels without blinking was shaking because he was about to confess to an elementary school teacher. "Dad, you look pale," Leo whispered. "I am nervous," Vincent admitted. "Breathe," Leo said. "I am breathing," Vincent replied. "Then breathe better." "How do I breathe better?" Vincent asked. "I don't know," Leo said, "but you have 5 minutes to figure it out." Olivia walked onto the stage in a light blue dress, with a simple pearl necklace, holding a children's book, under the library lights. She was so beautiful, Vincent forgot how to breathe. "Good morning, everyone," she began warmly. "Today we celebrate something wonderful. Reading. Stories that take us far, teach us lessons, and connect us." Vincent heard none of the rest because he was trying not to faint. Leo nudged him and said, "She's almost done, get ready." "I can't do it," Vincent whispered. "You can. What if I forget everything I planned? Then improvise." "I'm terrible at improvising. You once used a cold sandwich as an excuse to come to school. You can improvise anything." Olivia finished and said, "And now we will begin the reading. Our first parent will be..." Leo pushed Vincent forward and Vincent stumbled into view. Whispers spread. The chat group mothers stared. The bodyguards disguised as parents tensed. Vincent walked toward the stage with each step heavy. Olivia stared wide-eyed and said, "Vincent, what are you doing?" He climbed the 2 steps and faced her with 80 people watching, 20 children on cushions, Mr. Garcia filming, and Vincent forgot everything he had prepared. "Olivia," he began, "I prepared a speech." "You did?" Olivia smiled. "Yes, it was written, and very good, with metaphors about books and new chapters. Sounds nice, and I forgot it all." Soft laughter spread, and Olivia bit her lip. "Then improvise," she said. "I'm bad at improvising." "I know," she replied, "but try." Vincent took a deep breath and said, "Olivia Bennett, a month ago I lay in a warehouse with a bullet in my shoulder, and told you I was a monster. And that is still true. I have killed. I have ordered terrible things. I do not deserve to stand here." The library was silent. "But I am also the man who tripped over a student desk the first time we met, who knocked over a unicorn pencil box and 3 chairs, who learned to bake at 2 in the morning without knowing flour from baking powder, who practiced talking in front of a mirror and still could not say a proper sentence to you." Someone yelled. "They had the video." Vincent went on. "I love you. I have loved you since the summer 15 years ago, when you were the girl afraid of the water. I loved you when you were the brave teacher who protected my son with a knife at your throat. I will love you whether you say yes or no." He held out the lilies and said, "Olivia Bennett, will you be my girlfriend?" Officially in front of 80 witnesses, 20 children, and 1 security guard filming everything. The room held its breath. Olivia looked at him, at the flowers, at the crowd, then whispered to herself loud enough for the microphone to catch. "Say yes, Olivia. Say yes." He brought flowers, white lilies like your mother's, he remembered. He even prepared a speech and forgot it. So sweet. Say yes before he faints on reading day. "I hear you," Vincent said. "I know," Olivia replied, wiping her tears and smiling for the first time in weeks. "Yes." The library exploded in applause. Children clapped without knowing why. Mothers screamed like at a romance movie. Mr. Garcia shouted, "I knew it." Leo appeared on stage holding a sign that read, "Stage 12, complete mission success." Vincent hugged Olivia. Olivia kissed Vincent. The applause grew louder. A child yelled, "They are kissing." Another yelled, "Yay." Leo lifted the sign higher and announced after 1 month of planning, 12 stages, and countless moments of Dad making a fool of himself. "I proudly announce my father has finally stopped being an idiot." Leo Vincent protested, still holding Olivia. "What, Dad, it's true, but I am proud of you now. Kiss again. The guard is filming and the kids need a happy ending." Olivia laughed. Vincent kissed her again. Applause continued, and in the corner Marco wiped his eyes with a handkerchief, whispering that his boss was finally not alone anymore. 6 months had passed since the confession in the library, and Olivia was now living with Vincent and Leo in the seaside villa in Santa Barbara. She woke up every morning to the sound of the ocean, and Leo's laughter drifting up from downstairs. She went to sleep every night with Vincent's arm around her waist, and a sense of safety she hadn't known since her parents died. Life wasn't perfect because Vincent still had work she didn't want to know the details of. There were still late-night calls and mysterious trips, but he always came back, and he was always there for her and Leo when they needed him, and that was enough. On the last Saturday morning of the month, Olivia woke up to the smell of something burning. She jumped out of bed and ran downstairs, with her heart racing, and found the kitchen looking like a battlefield, with flour everywhere on the counter. On the floor, in Vincent's hair, on Leo's face, a pan smoking black on the stove, and the 2 of them standing in the middle of the mess, looking guilty like children caught stealing sweets. "Good morning," Vincent said with an awkward smile. "We're making a surprise breakfast." "A surprise that turned into a disaster," Leo added. Olivia didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she looked at the burned pan and asked, "What is that?" "Pancakes," Vincent said, "or they used to be pancakes, now they're charcoal." Then another voice came from the corner of the kitchen saying, "I told you you should have let me do it." Olivia turned and saw Tommy sitting on a tall stool filming everything on his phone. His surgery had been successful 4 months earlier, and the 17-year-old was healthy now and living with them, because Vincent insisted he stay close to Olivia and be cared for properly. Olivia looked at the 3 men in her life. A mafia boss with flour in his hair, a 9-year-old with chocolate on his nose, and a 17-year-old grinning like he'd won the lottery. And she realized this strange, chaotic scene was her family. "We wanted to do something special," Vincent said as he stepped toward her and almost slipped on the flour on the floor. "Something special," Olivia echoed. "Yes." Vincent nodded, and Leo opened a drawer and took out a small black velvet box, and Olivia stopped breathing. Vincent knelt right there in the messy kitchen with his knee in the white flour and his hand trembling as he opened the box to reveal a diamond ring sparkling in the sunlight. "Olivia," Vincent said, "I know I'm not perfect. I'm a man with a dark past and a complicated present, and I've done things you never should have had to know about, and I can't promise the future will be easy." Tears filled Olivia's eyes, but she couldn't stop them. "But I can promise I'll love you every day," Vincent continued. "I'll protect you with my life. I'll stand beside you in every storm. And I'll try to be a man worthy of you, even though I know I never truly will be." Leo held up a sign that read, "Bonus stage official, just say yes." Ms. Bennett and Tommy held up another that said, "Be my sister-in-law, I need someone on my side when these 2 bully me." Olivia laughed through her tears and looked at Vincent's eyes full of hope and fear and 15 years of love. And Vincent said, "Olivia, Bennett, will you marry me right here in this messy kitchen, with burned pancakes as witnesses?" Olivia looked at him, at Leo and Tommy with their signs, at the flower-covered kitchen, and at the life she never dared dream of, and whispered to herself, "Yes, Olivia, he's kneeling in flour. His pants must be expensive, but he's still kneeling because he loves you. Say yes, before he gets cramps." "I hear you," Vincent said. "I know," Olivia replied and smiled the brightest smile she'd ever had and said yes 1,000 times yes. Vincent slid the ring onto her finger. Leo threw his sign into the air and shouted with joy. Tommy filmed everything and yelled he'd show it at the wedding. Marco appeared in the doorway crying and saying his boss finally had a real family. Vincent stood up and hugged Olivia. She hugged him back and cried into his shoulder. Leo hugged them both. Tommy jumped down and joined the group hug, and the four of them stood in the messy kitchen with flour in their hair, tears on their cheeks, and happiness in their hearts. They sat down to eat pancakes from a nearby shop, because their own were beyond saving. They laughed about everything and nothing, teased each other, and protected each other in the same breath. And Olivia realized this was what she'd been searching for all her life. A family didn't need to be perfect or have beautiful breakfasts or a clean kitchen. A family was people who chose to stay together every day, no matter how crazy life became, who faced storms together, who loved each other knowing every flaw, who chose each other every morning and every moment. Vincent looked at Olivia. Olivia looked at Leo. Leo looked at Tommy. Tommy looked at all three and smiled and said, "You know I'm going to tell this whole story at the wedding with slides, charts, the guards' videos, and that clip of Dad practicing in the mirror. Would you expect anything else?" Vincent asked. "No," Olivia laughed, "definitely not." And so, among laughter and cold pancakes, their story went on. Not in a grand hall with music and a gown, but right there in that messy kitchen, on an ordinary Saturday morning with flour in their hair and love in their hearts. Because some stories don't need perfect endings, they just need imperfect people choosing to stay together forever. The story of the Mafia boss frozen at a classroom door, and the 9-year-old with the 12-stage plan ended here. But its message remained that love can be found in the most unexpected places, that the past doesn't define the future, that family isn't perfect people but people who choose to love each other knowing every flaw, and that sometimes the most dangerous man in the world can become the gentlest when he stands before the one he loves. Thank you for following this story from beginning to end. If it touched your heart, please like and share this video with those you love. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next stories. We'd love to hear what you feel about it and how it connects to your life. Leave a comment with your thoughts from the heart because every comment gives us strength to keep creating meaningful stories. Wishing all of you health, joy, and peace every day. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.